All set? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Albany Court District Commission Finance Committee to order. The first item on our agenda is approval of minutes from the October 23rd, 2024 Finance Committee meeting. That long ago. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Any questions, comments, edits? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting? So moved. And second?
Second.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. So, our first quarter 2025 financial review. Ms. Studo, how are you?
In your package, you have the preliminary results through March 31st, 2025. Our forecasted budget remains the same. We're forecasting our revenue to be over budget by $17.5 million, and that has to do with the public-private partnership revenue, which is for the remainder of the equipment delivery on the pad-ready part of the project. The rest of our operating revenue has slight variances. We're projected to be over budget for rental income and mortgage fees. And we have slight projections for under budget for stevedore, crane rental, and security, but those are small amounts. For our operating expenses, this shows the same thing, that our development expense for the Empire Wind project, which we have budgeted, will be $17.5 million, and that again relates to the expenses for the to be delivered this year. The remainder of our expenses are all under budget, exception of repairs and maintenance, but that's a small, less than $2,000 variance. So our operating income and expense, which was projected, budgeted to be $337,000, we forecast that to be $732,000 at the end of the year, which is almost a $400,000 positive variance. Our depreciation and other income and expenses is within $11,000 of what we budgeted. We do expect capital grant revenue to catch up by the end of the year. We have some minor or small amount of revenue from the capital grant, and those are the early expenses on the newest New York State PPRAP grant. Any questions on the income and expenses?
Michael, George, any questions?
No.
At this point? I think we're good.
Okay, the next is statement of net position. Remains strong in our cash at almost $19 million. The amount of that is deposits for the Empire Wind project, which we've discussed previously. That contract did come to an end, so those are our funds to expend the rest of the project, and any excess will be for the operating budget. So with the revenue over expenses of $755,000 year to date, so we have a total net position of $76 million, and our total assets and liabilities and net position is $123 million at the end of March. Very few large variances from last year, exception of the capital lease, which has been spent down by $1.5 million in the last year.
Any questions on the statement of net position? Hearing none. The next item.
We've also included the statement of cash flows showing for the end of 2024 and the first quarter of 2025. It's included in your packet.
agenda is to review the finance committee charter. Is that you?
Sure. The committee charter is in your packet. Staff is not recommending any changes or amendments this year. It was amended last year.
So we say moving right along.
So,
Investment policy review?
I should ask for a vote of the committee to accept the charter and continue it without any amendments at this time.
So the item before us is does the committee accept the recommendation of staff not to make any changes to the finance committee charter, accept it as is at this time? Yes.
First, we just need a vote.
Motion?
Motion.
Second? Second. All approved.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think I'm an ex officio member. So
Yeah,
I
we're
can't-
good.
We're good.
Moving right
Just
along.
making sure.
Investment policy review. No changes on the finance one, so on the charter, so.
The next will be investment policy review, and again, staff is not recommending any changes to the policy. The UHY reviews these policies as part of their audit review, and they're okay with it as it stands.
So there's not a recommendation to move everything into gold at this time? Is that, all right, so.
Or buy extra mattresses.
Yeah. So the question again before the committee is to accept the recommendation of staff to make no changes to the investment policy charter review as is.
So, I'll make a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okey-dokey.
Now be forwarded to the full board for its
Correct.
consideration.
Procurement? Any amendments?
Okay. Via the email from Ann, we attached the entire procurement policy. The memo that I attached details the minor changes that were recommended from Jess Lansing, our procurement director. The state of New York increased its non-competitive procurement levels for MWBE and SDVOB from 200,000 to 750,000. Yeah, that was that was our reaction.
Is that their recommendation or the
That's
requirement?
that's their guidelines. So it was, we have in the past followed their guidelines on all our procurement.
Says competition may be waived.
Correct.
But does not have to be waived.
Correct.
I think it's scary not to have some kind of competitive stuff. I mean, that's a lot of dollars here.
So the way that we've explained it in-house is that it's still we can still do a competition, just not what procurement call formal competition. Silo it if we so choose, the board so chooses to go to competition with just MWBEs or just SDVOBs. So you could still silo it and put it out to those categories of that world and still get the competition, but you won't find any disagreement with staff that is not the same as full open competition.
Comments from the committee members?
Well, but so we still have the right to do that.
Correct.
Yes.
Should we choose?
It gives the APDC the ability to do that if it's warranted.
Right.
We do not have to.
There's cases where we know there just aren't a lot of
Correct.
MWBs that do it, and so it's just, right,
Goes
there
out to
aren't people
full
that did
market.
it too, so.
So how,
So it gives you that flexibility, but,
Right.
yeah.
so how do we get it so that, from what I'm hearing, I have a preference that there's at least some competitive competition among the eligible pool that they're talking about, when it's under 750. How do we, if that's the intent of the board, how do we get that into our procurement practice? Because that's not implied.
Yeah, it's a little harder to write word for word into it. I think that's how we have understood the board, even at the 200 level, previously, to discuss internally and discuss with the board when warranted that how would we want to move forward on an individual procurement.
So how do we codify that?
right, so I think what you're saying
Yeah.
is, even though we can,
Yeah,
our
'cause it says
policy
may.
should.
May, right.
Right.
The
our
board
policy should
prefers the
say-
policy to have a competitive
Yep.
among the eligible MWB
Yep.
pool, whatever, however that's said.
Right, but understands state guidelines.
Right.
But isn't that what this is?
It is what this is. I think by the very nature of you saying it on the record in the committee, then that's the direction for staff, and I can try to finesse some language.
Well, the
that would-
decision makers around the table, I think,
All
are
heard of it.
interested in, so, I respect certainly that you'll understand what we're trying to get done. And
Yes.
follow through accordingly, without making it a finished project.
So can I just clarify that you are okay that we put it out to bid to MWB?
MWB, yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of, I think, what we're suggesting, when I'm
Right.
thinking of.
So that-
When the market allows for it.
Yes.
I think is what Georgette's saying. If you look at that category and there are none, or there is one, then you might not.
You can still put it out there, and if you get one response,
You
you
get one response, right.
Mm,
I mean, that's kind of what
Yeah.
we have, we get quotes, and if two of them are no quotes, then you got one quote.
Then you got one quote,
So at
yeah.
least you've gone through the process of meeting the intent of what you're trying to do to
Right.
get a competitive procurement among the eligible.
Correct.
Stuff, so I think we're still satisfied with the consent, recognizing the state's intent.
And it's the board's discretion to waive the requirements, or do we have to get a formal waiver?
So we're not, this process isn't a waiver.
Okay.
This is permitted under state
Okay.
guidelines. So if the board adopts to move the dollar amount higher, that's
Okay.
within the branches of the state government that oversee both MWBE office and the SWOB offices. So there's no waiver. It's simply an ability to compete in a different manner.
So the state increased the value from 200 to 750?
Yes.
Do we have to do that?
No.
Well, that's the other question.
Yeah.
What's the sense of the committee?
I don't think we wanna pigeonhole ourselves into the 200. So technically, we're a state authority,
Yeah.
and we follow all other state guidelines that are recommended?
Yes.
Yeah. In terms of, like you said, pigeonholing ourselves, what's your sense of what that will do based on past procurements? Will it put us in a difficult spot?
No, I think I would say it opens more doors on a project. I mean, all of our projects are getting more expensive, so if anything, the 200 pigeonholes us into, there's no point in opening into that market because you know the cost of the project is gonna be north of 300.
I think the intent with following it is trying to have a better shot of fulfilling the utilization goals that we have. And I would say that in some ways, we have same state authority, but in some ways, they are very distinct to this authority. It's not apples to apples to say, for example, OGS. In some cases, it can be followed what they do, and in some cases, we can't. But we still have that 30% MWBE utilization, and so I think that procurement perception was this may enable us to have a better shot at fulfilling those goals, when I think they would say it's particularly challenging now in this geographic area.
So if we have a main contractor that comes in, bids a project, what's the contractor's MWB goal?
For themselves is 30%. 30%.
30%.
For themselves.
So this is direct procurement, this is direct procurement.
Correct. Well,
and maybe we're saying two different things, but I've heard the procurement conversation say it would still go through, for example, be posted on the contract
Right.
reporter with the note that this is a MWBE, opportunity to fulfill that goal.
Now I'm confused. Now you're confusing me. So we have a particular solicitation for a product.
Yep.
And it's $350,000 estimate. And so.
So the way the state procurement works, that we have to follow through, if it's over 50,000, we still have to do we can call an RFP, we can call it a bid. It still has to follow the same requirements. It goes on contract reporter, we put it in whatever publications we would normally do, and we highlight, check a bunch of boxes that everybody knows this is aimed at MWBE or veterans, and that is who is anticipated to respond to that bid. So it's
So
well, it says it's
if
non-competitive. I still think yeah.
MW service disabled and vendor bids it at 300,000, and the MWB comes in at 400,000, they're gonna get the job, they're gonna get the bid?
MWBE, depending on, first, they're not.
Let's assume that they're qualified.
Right, first, the others aren't
So
supposed
if
to
it's
respond.
so if they bid $650,000, and the regular contractor bids 300, we have to go to the 600,000?
No. So there's two ways. So first, the non-MWBE should not be responding.
So the solicitation is restricted to?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's what I've meant by there's a first paragraph out of the gate
restricted to.
says
Okay.
only should apply.
Yeah, in my view, as long as it's competitive, I think that kind of meets the intent, don't you think? It's not, this question as much the dollar amount as the competitive.
To go through that point, you can pull it back, the bid, if there's one bidder that's at 650.
Sure. We
Yeah.
can pull, all RFPs and bids are written that we can accept or not.
Waiving formalities.
Yep, and go back out to the
But
market.
that does highlight there are hard decisions to make. You know, you gotta look at the time frame when something needs to be achieved, you gotta look at the cost, and you gotta look at fulfilling the utilization. It's a healthy conversation.
So that might be a situation though, okay, there's only one contractor that bid on this, let's waive the MWBE piece, right? And bid this out without that MWBE requirement.
Yes.
Okay.
But it doesn't allow you to, right, like, so the woman who just did the, not just, it's been a long time, but the paving lady, right?
Oh, sure.
So you couldn't just call her up and be like, hey, I've got a project. We know you're on WBE,
Only,
and she's the only.
According to this, you could.
We could.
And what we're saying is we would like you not to do that.
Correct.
We would do an RFP
Yeah.
open to.
So is there a
all.
way to, like, I don't know that I feel comfortable that our policy says we have the ability to do that. I'd like for the
So-
policy to be more explicit about that.
Getting a little more into the weeds, if
Yeah.
that was the case, and we did that, we could do a sole source or single source out. If it's a small project, and then it's under if it's under 50,000, then we can direct to an individual, but otherwise we would put that out to the market.
So
and we would get
50,000 requires you to do,
Over 50.
regardless of what this says?
Still,
You can do it under 50 too.
right, but yes, and we do.
I just think in the environment, everybody's playing gotcha.
Yep.
And with media and stuff, I just think they're always better off having competitive
Yep.
procurement.
We put it, and that's our stance. Everything goes on a contract board and goes out to bid. Even if we know we're gonna get one, like Joe said, maybe you hope you get two or
But at
three you
least
didn't know about,
It was a
but
public.
it's out there.
It was a
Yep.
solicitation.
Exactly.
We have one response. It's not that we only asked one, we asked everybody, one person responded.
Does that make sense?
That's our question.
I just wondered if there was confusion over the sense of solicitation versus awarding, the intent of the procurement guideline investment.
Just makes me a little, maybe I'm misunderstanding what this allows you to do, but it makes me nervous that we're saying, hey, we may have the opportunity to do that, but collectively, not in the policy, we're saying the board doesn't wanna do that. So why do we have a policy that says that we wanna do that? Right, and I'm saying like, the may is important, right, and the ability to use that versus need to use it, but if we're all in agreement that our preference is to put it out to bid, is there a way that the language says, or maybe I'm misunderstanding how it's written?
If you
Nevertheless,
look at-
period, nevertheless, the board is requesting that these solicitations, public solicitation be made.
Right, and that's what, when you look at the chart that is a part of our policy, when it says non-competitive procurements, that means, we would go out to a procurement, we would do a bid, but only to the MWB, SDVOB, category. And then also, when you look at, the next, the white box, a discretionary bidding process. So what we mean by discretionary is that we are gonna put it out to bid, but we're not gonna put it out to everyone, we're only gonna put it out to MWBE and SDVOB.
I think it just needs to be cleaned up a little bit with the language.
Cause that is our intent, to bid it, but to a different audience, a smaller
Yeah,
It
audience.
allows you to be exclusionary,
Right.
up to 750,000, restricted to MWBE and SDVOB.
You might be thinking of non-competitive, but it's not.
Competitive in a smaller pool.
It's competitive just in its own silo.
I just think it would be helpful to maybe just clarify some of
Sure.
this with, the words may,
What you're saying.
discretionary may. We want to have shall be for that pool of MWBE, regardless of the dollar figure.
Well, see, that's, the word shall get you in trouble sometimes, because sometimes we want it out to the whole market. So I think that's
What I'm trying.
where the may,
That's
yeah,
what I
so
intended to
we'll
say.
try to get that
Yeah.
language.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
You know what we want.
Bring
We know
something
what
back,
you-
we
yeah.
trust you.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's good.
You're on record
I know
saying
about
that.
that. Christina, I'm on everything.
That was Joe, that wasn't me.
All right, well, that's,
Right, so you'll
I'm
bring
sorry
something back
for,
to the next meeting?
sorry for getting wound around the axle on that.
No, I think
No,
it's
we
important,
appreciate that.
it's a good discussion.
That's a big number going.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we had on our agenda for the finance committee.
That's-
Are we going to, no action
So
taken
no,
on this?
yeah, we'll,
Okay,
Yeah, we're deferring,
Okay.
deferring action on the
Okay.
procurement policy amendment to
okay.
another time.
Where exclusively MWBE and SDVOB.
And we could probably bring that up even at a regular board meeting, like, don't have to have a finance committee meeting for that.
yeah, we can bring up the regular
I
board
think
meeting
that's
as well.
what-
That's okay.
Any other business from the committee members?
No.
Okay, hearing none, no need for executive session. The next meeting of the finance committee is scheduled for July 30th, 2025. Being no further business, I call for a motion to adjourn our committee meeting. Second?
Second.
We are adjourned.
Okay, so we'll officially move into, the monthly meeting of the Newport District Commission. My name is Georgette Stephens, I'm the chair.
Oh, Michael Sinquani, board member.
Joe Coffey, board member. Dominic Tagliano, board member.
Richard Hendricks, CEO.
Patrick Jordan, General Counsel.
Christine Studo, CFO.
Angela, administrative assistant.
Cheryl Stock, Director of Security.
Matt Sullivan, Operations Manager for Logistech.
Roddy Yagan, Senior Construction Project Manager.
Eddie Bavori, Director of External Affairs.
Okay, and Megan Daly stepped out quickly, but she'll be returning, shortly. Okay, so in everyone's packet, we have the minutes from the March 24th meeting. Does anyone have any, edits or changes? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So at this time, I'm gonna turn it over to Pastor Lowell, to say some words.
Pastor Lowell Chilton from the Albany Maritime Ministry, and today
Instead of normal updates, we're gonna have a moment of remembrance. Two members of the port community died in the last month, Commissioner Warren Abril and Longshoreman Lawrence Storm. We're gonna hold a moment of silence in their memory. I'm gonna close the moment of silence with playing the first Eternal Father Strong to Save, the United States Navy hymn, and also the hymn that we play at every seafaring ministry gathering I go to. And I'll close with, because I'm a Lutheran pastor, I'll close with a prayer for remembering those who have died from the Lutheran prayer book. Let us have a moment of remembrance. The generations rise and pass away before you. You are the strength of those who labor. You are the rest of the blessed dead. We rejoice in the company of your saints. We remember all who have lived, all who have died, and those most dear to us who rest in you, especially Warren Abril and Lawrence Storm. Give us in time our portion with those who have trusted in you and striven to do your holy will. To your name, with the church on earth and the church in heaven, we ascribe all honor and glory, now and forever.
Amen. Thank you so much. So Christine, I'll turn it over to you for the financial update.
Prior to the, board meeting, we had a finance committee meeting where we reviewed the financial statements through, the first quarter of 2025. We noted that there were, some large positive variance due to the, timing of the, Empire Wind project and the purchase of equipment. And the remainder of our, both revenue and expenses, we had slight, positive variances. So we expect to be at the end of the year, at, a net change in that position of 1.7 million, which is, about 450,000 over what we had budgeted for the year. We also reviewed the statement in that position, that again had, the large change was in our pay down leases, and we are at, 122.9 million in total liabilities in that position. Also included was our statement of cash flows, for the review of the commissioners. There were no questions brought up at this finance committee meeting. If there's any questions now.
No, I think the only other thing is that we reviewed the committee charter and there were no recommended changes, and the committee accepted, the charter as is, and then we'll talk about, bullet groups and things later in the meeting. Anything anything else? Okay, Rich, I'll turn over to you for your update.
Thank you. We're continuing to work with the US Navy on that SAIL 250 operation. We have another meeting actually tomorrow morning, as we continue to bring together the enormous plans that are being undertaken for the 250th anniversary of the United States. Spent quite a bit of time the last month working with the AATA in conversations with the United States Trade Representative and the United States administration on making a lot of strides to bring more in line the tariffs that are going to be charged to ships that would be visiting United States ports that were made in China and elsewhere. Most recently, we've had feedback that was going to be workable on these fees. We're hoping that a final decision on this will be forthcoming, but at the present time, the Association of Port Authorities is fully supportive of what is proposed. We also attended the Coast Guard Area Maritime Security Committee meeting down in Brooklyn, and our security department, Cheryl and Jim, have been spending a lot of time recently working with Customs and Border Protection on security enhancements for some of the facility. Recently, there's been a lot of changes and new upgrades to required security on ships, and our security people are right on top of and in lockstep with U.S. Customs on meeting those requirements. Any questions at all?
Is that it?
Thank you.
Oh, I also want to say, I saw the pictures, and sorry I couldn't participate in Earth Day cleanup.
Oh, yeah.
But it sounded like it was a lot of fun, and it was really nice to support one of the organizations that we do some activities with the kids through Historic Cherry Hills. So, nice job.
It was a great event because we had great participation from the staff, but we also had tenants represented, neighbors represented. Our staff came in with the whole crew, and it was, I think, made a big change for spring cleanup.
Yeah,
That's a great thing.
Really well. It looked like you had a successful day too.
We did.
Yeah.
Really good day. Yeah, almost
That's
100
awesome.
people came out.
That's huge.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
How many people?
Almost 200.
Bigger part of the earth we cleaned up.
Yes, that is one of the great community events that happened and are happening. We'll also be hosting an event on May 12th that is going to focus on green marine and the environmental sustainable efforts, not only that the port is executing, but also our, again, tenants and neighbors. Looking to build a committee that will stay in touch on a quarterly basis and sort of help support initiatives on all fronts. In addition to the SAIL 250, we are also a stop for the Buffalo Maritime Museum's canal boat Seneca Chief that will be coming through later in October, and so working through those logistics as far as docking and all that good stuff. So a lot of folks from a lot of different departments are involved in all of these efforts. On the media front, I'll leave this for, we put out a release on the RFEI, the Request for Expressions of Interest. and had a lot of nice, not only local, but, industry and international pickup on the release. So, hopefully we'll be seeing the results on that soon. And then the other big thing is that our new website is live, so definitely take a look when you get a chance. Again, many players involved in editing and providing content, images, all that good stuff. We did just go through our initial review, and we received perfect scores on performance and best practices, a 98 on accessibility, and 92 on SEO. So, keeping top of mind accessibility, being responsive to the authority's budget office, ethics, all of our reporting agencies. So, yes, so a good month for media.
It's a good website. I went through it kind of quickly when it came out.
Oh,
It's
great.
pretty easy to navigate.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, yeah, I had fun picking out pictures, so those might be
They were pretty
changing
good.
in and out, so. Yeah, so, and if you have any ideas so part of the goal on the website is on the homepage, there's the news and updates, and so those will be changing out more regularly and then driving content further into the site. So again, another opportunity to post photos from birthday or to, sort of a more quick turnaround on things versus, a release or if we're going to an event. But, and then sort of, again, under those green, marine, environmental sustainability, using that to QR codes to drive to content that we have available digitally.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's great, it's really exciting.
yeah, definitely.
Also speaking on ethics, don't forget that, your financial disclosures are due May 15th.
Well, I guess there's no point in me being here.
We've always.
I was saving that for new business.
Sorry. Well, she said ethics, it made me remember, make sure I file mine, but so they are due May 15th, for all the board members. All right, Matt, I'll turn it over to you for your, tonnage report, ships, barges, and tonnage.
Yeah, thank you. So for March, we just had, 2 ships, one barge and 1 ship. We continue to have, a strong terminal activity in and out via truck and rail. I believe that's going to continue through April. April's ships will be probably 3 to 4, depending on when they hit. We have 2 that are due right at the end of the month, next week. So one might be pushed into May. But one is wood pulp with another 5,000 tons. And the other is a new product with a new customer. It's wood mats. Basically, they're high-end crane mats. They're supposed to be more sustainable, made out of eucalyptus, and I guess they last 2 to 3 times longer than what's usually made. So they're made in Brazil. We got 5,000 tons, so 5,000 mats. Each one's a ton.
Do those arrive?
Next week, Wednesday, roughly. Tuesday, Wednesday. That'll be, it's kind of a trial shipment, and these ones are already sold to a person or a customer, our customer's customer out in Syracuse, for a project out there. So that'll be exciting to see something new. Hearing from our sales team, still knocking on everybody's door, putting things out there, but they have heard that things are kind of on hold more with the tariff situation. They're not looking to make the decisions quite yet until they can figure out what the tariffs will be. But everything else that we had planned is still on track. GE Winds project should start up in July. They're already obviously making the units. They're just going to start trucking them out in July for a September shipment, and then continue trucking to us for another shipment in November and January. Wood pulp will stay steady with about 5,000 tons every 2 months. And GE's power products are ramping up. There's 4 more generators coming out in the next 3 to 5 weeks, that we should see ships for. But we just finished our Green Marine verification yesterday. We had the auditor here, everything went very well. Very pleased with our partnership with you guys on the board, and their, your Green Marine mission. So I think we'll be verified. We just need to, finish all the boxes and everything. But that went well.
If I could say one thing too, Matt, congratulations on the successful completion of the negotiations with the ILA.
Yes, we
The
did finish
announcement
that.
will be coming out soon, but we've had a 4-year agreement that.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, that finished, or we have a verbal agreement, everything together. Beginning of this month, we're just now making all the changes to the contract and writing it up, but everything is already in place on a, good faith agreement.
That's great, congratulations. Any questions for that? I'm gonna turn it over to Megan.
I just was gonna add, it's been nice to see your sales team here. The Logistex corporate sales team has been here quite a lot over the past couple months. It feels like we've been seeing them each month, and I think that's a nice check-in for us to see how they're doing with the new customers, as well as talking to some of the tenants here and seeing how they might be able to fulfill that. So even just in the past week or so.
Yep.
Hopefully that will continue. It feels like that good connection.
Yeah, no, it is, and our local or regional salesperson, Marie, I can't say her last name, is coming to the Capital Region Commerce meeting in May, so she's going to attend that.
And it's interesting to hear them talk about some of the other ports too, and how they're getting affected differently because of the commodity or, source, et cetera. So
yeah,
it's been helpful. A couple things from my end. We have been trying to share information as much as possible on the opportunity related to the RFPI and expressing this opportunity. It is open until June, so we're aware of the time frame and wanting to keep pounding the pavement on that to be able to solicit as much potential for interest that we'll get to take a look at. I would echo, that same comment related to some people seeing this as a tricky time to invest. We're getting some of that feedback as well from, energy related and non-energy related interest, that they see it as a big opportunity. But so I think that means that we need to do, far and wide expression on this to be able to see about opportunities. So we'll redouble efforts on getting that information out there. Again, with that due in June. We've also been having a number of business development meetings in general, including with offshore wind, onshore wind, and other energy and other regional priority cluster industry, like the global foundries, for example. And there is some trepidation there, as there's been great alarm with, what happened with the most recent project in New York. There are some companies that give a feedback of, this is gonna have to be a long game thing here, but still level of intent. We've even had some projects that or developers, I should say, that are still looking to do their homework, that still have their teams assembled, that still are looking at opportunities ahead. So that has been definitely an interesting time, but I think, for investment purposes and attracting investment purposes, the wider look at industry is smart right now, and we're seeing some of the other port projects that were in the wind sector doing the same thing. We're seeing that with New Jersey and other areas. I think it's been really helpful to participate. John and I have participated in, he's ill today, or he would be here, but we've participated in a couple of energy conferences and conversations, and that's been helpful for networking and we'll continue to do that. We also, we wanted to note, we submitted another, New York State Port and Rail, infrastructure grant application to, the state a couple weeks ago. This one is for, maritime-related equipment, including some zero-emission equipment and some, improved technology. It feels like we're really trying to capitalize on that, so, hopefully we'll have that good competition, but we think we put together an excellent, submission as well as a benefit cost analysis, so hopefully that will go our way. Don't know if Christina wanted to know, but we did have a on-site PFRAP, site visit with operations and procurement, and it seemed as if that went extremely well on, past execution of PFRAP, so that, that continues to go the way that it should go, which is helpful. I do have two, items for executive session, if, possible, related to, negotiations. And then I would see if Rod, you wanted to add any update.
Still working on some of the closeout items, working close with National Grid on some of the pole redesign work near the intersection at Corning Hill, and our final service for a secondary power, or secondary service to the hot box at the main entrance, for our water line. And then, just waiting on the gate to be installed. We have a lot of support infrastructure in place at the north end of the bridge, just waiting on the actual gate and motor to get installed. I think that's just a material availability item. That's mostly it for closing out the existing scope, and then we're still working through some of the administrative process going forward with the grant work through ESD. So I know procurement and the rest of the team is engaged with the ESD folks on just getting everything set up, all approvals in place to be able to start moving on that work. We've started, strategizing on how that'll all play out, and looking forward to a brief update.
Thanks.
Any questions for anything about it? Okay, so in our finance committee meeting, the committee reviewed the investment policy, and there were staff was not recommending any changes. So we have resolution 14-2025. That states we did our annual review and approvals. We reviewed it, and we reapproved the Albany Port District Commission investment policy as is. I'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we are going to table, we're gonna hold the procurement policy based on discussions we had at the finance committee meeting. And move on to the Kid Win Challenge sponsorship. So this is something that we sponsored last year, and the kids did so well with their projects. We actually had them here at Port Industry Day last year as well, which was a really big hit. They are going to Phoenix, Arizona. So we're looking to sponsor them. Sorry, I'm trying to find it. Okay. At a $500 level per team for a total of $1,500. It is within the scope of what we do here at the port, and would be an eligible sponsorship opportunity. So I will take, if there's no questions, I'll take a motion to approve resolution 16-2025 for sponsorship to the Capital District Regional Kid Win Challenge winning teams at a cost not to exceed $1,500.
Make a motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. That project is really fun. Okay, Pat, are you gonna talk about
Sure.
the
Property procurement resolution number 17. For ease, and what I should have done with the packet went up right behind the resolution, paper copies. I gave you two maps from the city assessor's office just to show the property. It's literally that tiny red square. It measures 68 by 71 feet, and for no one's firm understanding, the school district has owned it for as long as the school district has been around. It sits in the middle of all of Fort-owned property that was acquired about 20 years ago. All those parcels surrounding it, we've talked about this in the past, this square, and we talked about the properties. It's the 20 acres off of, runs from Binghamton Street, which probably no one has ever been on, down to the south entrance of the port on South Pearl. This was we've gone back and forth with the school district in the past few years. Timing just didn't work out. It did work out. This year, staff's been in contact with the administration at the school district and with their attorneys, and they, a couple weeks ago, agreed to put it out on their May ballot when the school budget goes on. So anytime they're gonna buy or sell property, same way as this board does, they have to put it, well, a little more into it, but that proposition has to appear on the ballot. They said that will happen in May, so then we could acquire it in June if the board so chooses. We thought $1,000 was a rather reasonable request for but with all property acquisitions, even for a nominal amount of $1,000, it still has to be approved by the board before we can move forward. So, as you can tell by the map, it's right in the middle of our property, and we'd like to clean up that property as a whole.
Right, it allows us to better package it.
And as the board knows,
develop
yes,
it.
we have, and we'll have a little further discussion on that, but we've been marketing that 20 acres for several years, especially since the Councilman project didn't go forward. That was our last big attempt there to either lease it or build on it or sell it. So that puts us, in a proper position to do that.
Anything on the property now?
No.
Anything under the property?
We've been using it as if it's ours for the last 2 decades.
Hopefully we have the votes.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just buy it.
Okay, yeah, so resolution 17-2025, so anytime, the property market value is reasonably determined to be less than $10,000, we don't have to get an appraisal.
Appraisal would
instead-
cost more than the price of
Right, than
property.
the $1,000, yeah. So, this allows, the CEO to execute the necessary documents to facilitate the conveyance of the property at a purchase price of $1,000 and any and all costs associated with the closing. Looking for a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Is there any other business?
As Megan mentioned, there's no other business. We asked you to take up a motion for moving into executive session for the purpose of discussing a proposal or acquisition, sale, or lease of real property.
Second? All in favor? so no action was taken during executive session. Our next, monthly board meeting is Wednesday, May 20 noon. We'll go right into the board meeting because there's no committee meetings, and otherwise I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?